Welcome to the Leaderboard with Matt Towery and John Hall, the only podcast that litigates the results, slices through the spin, and keeps score on everything that actually matters, which of course includes golf. So listen in now to the next episode as we jump right in.
Hello everyone, I'm Matt Towery. Welcome to the Leaderboard with my co-host John Hall. John, how are you?
Doing great, Matt. Really a good day to be out on the golf course.
Well, yeah, maybe. I hope I can get there today. At least I need to practice some, to be honest with you. I was rather sluggish on Sunday, to say the least. I was playing from the red tees because we were playing with newer golfers. And you can't play. Let me just go ahead and introduce our fantastic guest, Greg Jarrett, who's also a great golfer. How you doing, Greg?
Hey, I'm well. Thanks, Matt and John, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Good. Well, Greg, as you know, if you play from the blues or you play any further back, and then you have to play from the reds, you don't know what club to use. It's impossible to do.
Yeah, I'm 71 years old. So when I turned 70, I started using the senior tees. And, I'm having a lot more fun. There was a great article by a sports writer in the Wall Street Journal who was encouraging, older golfers, take advantage of the senior tee. There are too many of these guys, and I see it out on a golf course, who have no business playing the championship tees, and they slow down the entire course because, they're in over their heads. And, it's a lot more enjoyable game if you play to your abilities.
I agree with you. I have friends who always want to play further back, and it's just a debacle. I'll tell you this, Greg.
I was going to say there's hope out there, fellas. I play a scramble once a month, and two of the guys that play it, one of them's 86, one's 84, Hoff and Sonny, and they consistently win the longest drive. They consistently finish in the top. So there's a lot of good golf out there, fellas.
Well, we live on a golf course here in Florida, and no one ever hits a ball into my pool or our backyard. We live on the fourth hole, unless it's one of two things. If it's a charity tournament, inevitably somebody doesn't know how to play, and one ends up in the pool. Or when you get young guys who want to play from the tips, and they've got to prove that they can hit it 300 and something yards, it inevitably turns way to the left or right. And one yesterday whizzed right by me and hit the fence with the pool. And I waited to see who it was, with a bunch of younger guys, strong guys. I didn't want to embarrass them by saying, "Here's your ball." I could have dipped it out for them. They just acted like they'd lost it. Well, look, Greg, we're going to ask you a few things that are really in your wheelhouse other than golf. Let me talk a couple other golf questions. John, you want to start off?
Yeah, Greg. We're seeing all this prosecution that's going on or starting to percolate up. We've heard about the reports of the investigation. Looking down in what's going on in Florida, what do you think is going to come out of that? The grand juries and the legal issues that are developing there as it relates to all of this harassment that's been done over the past few years.
Yeah, the lawfare campaign against Donald Trump has really been unprecedented in American history. People like James Comey, Andrew McCabe, John Brennan, James Clapper. I mean, these are people who, beginning with the Russia hoax, began to abuse their positions of power, and they fabricated an utterly specious case, a fictitious case, that Trump was a Russian asset who conspired with Vladimir Putin in the bowels of the Kremlin to steal the 2016 presidential election. And it was all based on a smear that was invented by Hillary Clinton. And it was to distract from her own email scandal and a secret investigation that nobody knew about at the time being conducted by the Department of Justice and the FBI into her own pay-to-play schemes with Russians. Tens of millions of rubles were flowing into her foundation that the Clintons, particularly Hillary, treated as their personal piggy bank. And Barack Obama, there's evidence, shut down that investigation and forced the DOJ and the FBI to close it. So she had her own Russian problems. And, it's a classic case of projection. Let's accuse my opponent of doing what I have actually been doing. So she approved a plan to frame Donald Trump. And, John Brennan at the CIA found out about it, rushed to the White House in 2 successive meetings, told Barack Obama, and Joe Biden was there, and Clapper was there, and Comey was there, what Hillary had done. And instead of telling the truth to the American people, here's what Hillary has done. She's framed Donald Trump and is paying for the evidence, which is utterly phony in a dossier composed by a complete moron in the British intelligence service, Christopher Steele. They should have told Congress the truth, should have told the Americans the truth. Instead, they concealed it. And they had Comey use the lie as a pretext to launch a dilating investigation of Donald Trump. And that was the beginning of the Russia hoax. When it didn't affect the election and Trump was elected, they doubled down. Let's use it to drive him from office. And on Obama's orders, Brennan phonied up intelligence, the intelligence community assessment to implicate Trump when, in fact, the original intelligence exonerated Trump. You can't make this up. But it didn't just end with the Russia hoax. It extended, arguably, into the 2020 election. And, helping Joe Biden against Donald Trump. And then, of course, the lawfare campaign escalated some more with 4 criminal indictments against Donald Trump when he was seeking re-election in 2024. They weaponized the law to try to interfere in a presidential election, 3 of them successively, 2016, 2020, 2024. Is that a long-running conspiracy to, under the law, it's called deprivation of rights under color of law and conspiracy against rights? Trump has certain constitutional rights. Did these people all conspire together to interfere with those rights? And those are crimes as well as civil wrongs. So you've got this grand jury convened in Fort Pierce, Florida. The venue is essentially based on the Mar-a-Lago case against Trump, which, of course, was dismissed. And, I'm not sure that the prosecutors down there really knew what they were doing. And so Joe DeGeneva, who, was a U.S. attorney for years, he was a deputy attorney general, he was a special counsel, very experienced lawyer. I interviewed him extensively for my first book, The Russia Hoax, as well as the second book, Witch Hunt. Joe knows all of the facts and the evidence, and he was brought in recently to essentially take over the helm of that particular case. I know I'm giving you guys such a long explanation. I apologize. But I think the point is that there is evidence to bring criminal charges against a whole host of people. And I think the first one may be against John Brennan for lying about that intelligence report that he doctored. You could see James Comey indicted as well, and all of the people that were acting in concert with those 2 guys.
Yeah, Greg, and all those conspiracies, including the January 6th frame up that came out of that. Any chance that we're going to go beyond just those early actors? Are we going to be able to get into a real conspiracy, maybe even a RICO? I mean, this is a criminal organization designed for profit. Any chance that we can reach all the way back to Hillary and Obama?
Yeah. The problem with racketeering is it has to be an ongoing and highly sophisticated criminal enterprise. As you know, John, you're an experienced lawyer on this. This was in some ways disorganized, but highly effective. So I'm not sure about racketeering, but I do think there are conspiracy statutes that are applicable, as I mentioned. And, conspiracy to commit fraud by trifling with elections, defrauding the government, and so forth. So I'll be fascinated to see if there are charges, and B, what those charges are. Um, how much of the evidence am I aware of? I don't really know. But I do know that Joe DeGeneva and some other people associated with that case are not just experienced, but knowledgeable. And so we'll wait and see what they do in that case. But, I think it could bring in, the 2020 election and the concerns that were expressed at the time by Trump's legal team of, ballot fixing and, other potential illegalities that may have unduly influenced the election. Was it enough really to have changed the outcome? I don't think we know the answer to that question.
Yeah, it's hard to quantify. Guys, I haven't tried a criminal case since 1988, but I can tell you one thing that popped in my head when I saw James Comey with the seashells. Think about this, Greg. Seashells are perfect to send a message because the ocean's always going to come back in and wash them away. There's no fingerprints. There's no anything. Perfect way to send a message, right?
Yeah, subliminal message in code that erases itself.
That washes away. It just goes back out to sea and can't be reconstructed even by the FBI. Okay.
Come on, guys. Y'all know he just walked up and found those.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody believes that. And all of the legal analysts who were very quick to say, oh, this is utterly preposterous case to be brought against Comey. I think they're overlooking several things. First of all, this is a conservative district, the Eastern District of Virginia, and the ultimate jury, if there is a trial, might agree entirely with the grand jury that issued the indictment. Second of all, I think the legal standard, and these legal analysts keep saying, well, you've got to show intent. Did he knowingly and intentionally threaten the president of the United States? No. Read the statute and the case law interpreting the statute, particularly the second count. There's a lower standard that applies, reckless disregard. You guys know this as lawyers. And that makes it easier for prosecutors. And finally, I would say this. I don't think Comey and his defense attorneys, and certainly not these legal pundits, know the full extent of the evidence that may be highly incriminating against James Comey. Todd Blanche, the acting AG, mentioned early on that they had, quote, witnesses and documents to help them prove their case against Comey. I find that very interesting. I believe they were able to obtain and seize his emails. And there's something interesting in that charging document, the indictment. Did you guys notice the forfeiture demand? That the government, the law says you can't profit by your own illegal acts. So they're seeking forfeiture. My theory is that they're seeking book profits and royalties. It is no coincidence that Comey posted that online alleged threat to the president 5 days before his book came out. This was a year ago. I believe it was in May. And Comey was nowhere until he posted that. And suddenly, he's invited on all of these programs and he's promoting his book about to come out and it boosts the sales. Was that the plan all along? Let's issue this not so veiled threat against the president. It'll create a controversy and I can profit financially from it in book sales. I think that's part of the theory. And Todd Blanche at the DOJ may have evidence of that. So it could qualify as either intentional or reckless disregard. So, some of these lawyers are too quick to condemn the indictment. There may be more than meets the eye.
It's interesting. I just realized, Greg, you have your glasses on and you don't wear them on Hannity. And I wear my glasses every week on Laura's show. So nobody can recognize either one of us. But I can't wear my glasses because they just reflect too much in this room. But I can
these are probably reflecting too.
No, you're good. You're much better than me. I believe, trust me. So if you don't know,
I have 20/20 eyesight, but I need, these are reading glasses, $20 at CVS.
I use reading glasses too, but I don't have 20/20 eyesight. I'm just too lazy to go to the eye doctor again. I do wear contacts. So I just really quickly, sort of transitioning out. I will say one thing. I am concerned about an indictment of serious names too close to the election. I've always found that as a pollster, I've always found the public is very suspect of something when it happens. And of course, there have been certain standards, at least in the past, in the Justice Department, that you don't prosecute something after ahead of an election. But that's usually if the candidates are involved in the election. I'm not sure any of them are involved this time, so they might be able to move forward. But something's got to break pretty soon, I would think.
Yeah, look, investigations, as you both know, tend to move rather slowly at a snail's pace. So there's always an election that it's going to run up against and affect. So that's sort of an ongoing dilemma. And you're right to point that out, Matt. It does affect elections. Interestingly enough, it had a boomerang effect that benefited Donald Trump. The four criminal indictments that kept, Jack Smith pursuing two of them and the other knuckleheads pursuing the others. It had a boomerang effect. People resented it. It looked like what it was, an attempt to help Joe Biden and later Kamala Harris and hurt Donald Trump. And Americans are smart. They knew what was happening here. It's interesting. I've talked to Trump about it, and he said, yeah, I mean, it was like a gift in a way, because his ratings kept going up the more he kept getting indicted.
Well, they went up even higher every time they tried to shoot him. That's when it all turned. Guys, when you go back to the polling of that election, the night that the attempt was made in Butler, his numbers started to rise. And after that second attempt, they never looked back. And of course, then you had the debate with Biden, which was a catastrophe, and then a candidate who wasn't suitable to run against him. I'm going to shift this to golf for a minute, though, John, because we have a chance to ask a guy. I know you're a good golfer, Greg. I know you're an avid golfer. I know you're in Hilton Head. Now, where's your home course? Where do you play the most?
Well, there are three courses here. There's a Robert Trent Jones course, which I play the most, and it goes along the water, not far from my house. We're very close to the beach, a couple of houses off the beach. I play that the most. Really nice one. There's a Fazio course and Arthur Hills course. So there's three right here in the community I live in on Hilton Head Island. But the island is filled with all kinds of really terrific golf courses. So there's a great one, Long Cove, that I play over there with some members, and so many different great golf courses. My wife's about to take off and go play some golf today.
Good for her.
And I got my golf shorts on right here, but
okay. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. I heard you hurt yourself a little bit, so you're probably out of action for a little while, right?
Yeah, I tore my meniscus, as you and I were talking about, but I have a great orthopedist who gave me a cortisone shot. Now they use these gel injections.
Right, I've heard about that.
That provide a cushion. So I am actually back gingerly on the golf course, swinging away. And, I tore the meniscus because I was on the 10th tee and I was trying to cut the corner and swung too hard. And my knee collapsed.
Oh, gosh.
And, the rest is unfortunate.
Well, Greg, I heard you had
learn to stay within my own ability.
Don't we all? Go ahead,
I heard you had a 34 on your last 9. So we play that scramble I mentioned once a month on the Lake Lanier Islands course. So it's on Fridays. I'll send you the date once a month, and maybe you can come down because we like to stack our teams with the foursome, and with the 34, we could score.
You don't get that stuff away, John. You're supposed to keep that quiet. All right. So, well, last question. So we know Hilton Head has a lot of great golf courses. They also have a lot of bunkers. What's your best advice to a golfer who's stuck in that bunker trying to get out? What is your swing thought to get out of that bunker?
Bunkers bedevil all of us, right? I use a typical popular sand wedge that kind of has a flange on the bottom to get through the sand. I open the club face tremendously and try to I don't always take a full swing, but a half swing, and really try about an inch behind the ball and enough sand to lift it up and out over the lip of the bunker. It depends on the size. The other thing I found is that, with the typical sand wedge, it will only go so far. So if you're at a bunker that is substantially, let's say, 20, 30 yards away from the hole, I'll sometimes use a 9-iron to get a little bit more distance. So nothing special in, getting out of bunkers. And I'll tell you what, when you go over and play where they hold the RBC Heritages, they did just a few weeks ago, and I was out there watching these guys. They're tremendous bunker players. Those bunkers are so hard over at that golf course where they play the big signature tournament, and they just redid the whole course this winter. And, it's in tremendous shape, and it is so hard.
That was great advice, Greg. But I'm going to take our guest from a couple of weeks ago. Terry Bradshaw said when he ends up in the bunker, he picks out and throws it to the fairway and hits. So
that's classic Bradshaw.
It is classic. He said we don't worry about scoring. If we hit it out of bounds, we don't go to where it went out. We just bring it back out on the fairway. We don't ever play the sand, and we don't ever worry about it. So
as a Super Bowl champion, Bradshaw has certain unique privileges.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Well, we have privileges too, because we can do whatever we want, right? There's no judge, jury, or anything in that case. It's just the picky golfers you might be playing with.
That's right. Well, I play with guys who are older than me, so I take their money.
I love it.
Oh, it's great. Well, Greg, we really appreciate you sparing some time with us. Enjoyed watching you last night on Sean's show. Always enjoy watching you on Sean's show, and always love what you have to say, because I value it. I know that you know what you're talking about.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it, John, as well. Thanks so much for having me on. It's always a lot of fun talking a little bit of sports with politics.
Yeah, so I owe you a polling one, okay? Whatever you want it. I've done it before with you, so I'll come back and do it again.
I rely on you. You're the best.
Thank you. Back at you. Well, that was a great interview, wasn't it, John?
Great guy.
Yeah, fantastic. It's not only does he know so much about the law and about politics, but he knows a hell of a lot about golf, too.
He does. I do want him to play in my scramble with me, so
I bet you do.
We're going to have to follow up.
I bet you do. But now that everybody knows, nobody's going to want you to bring him in the scramble. They're going to know you brought a ringer, right?
Hey, I know the commissioner. I can get in.
Okay. Yeah. So you're sort of like the chairman of Augusta, right? You're the guy in charge. Let's, speaking of golf and leaders, big week in news. And so we're going to rush now to the leaderboard, the leaders and the laggards for this last week. John, you start us off.
Sure. I think you got to give this week to Donald Trump based on, if you go back and look at what happened in Indiana, where all of the Trump-supported candidates surprised both incumbents and challengers and ended up making a sweep there. That combined with the victory in redistricting, and the victory in Virginia. I mean, you wouldn't believe it if you watch regular news. They'd tell you how terrible it is and people hate him. But if you go look at what's happening around the country, it's a winner, and I think a lot of people are following that.
Well, it's something funny about that. So I actually went on Laura Ingram's show last week to talk about this. And when I arrived at the studio, there was nobody there. Now, this is not the fault of the Laura Ingraham show. This is the studio that we use here in Tampa that Fox uses. And it was just a little miscommunication. But when I got into the studio, we finally got the lights up and the IFBN and the mic check, the audio. I was so worked up that apparently I delivered such an incredibly enthusiastic commentary that somebody told me Trump had tweeted it out later that night or the next night. I did not see it until a couple of days later. Somebody sent it to me. But it was, President Trump, I'm always excited over you, but that wasn't the reason that I was so excited.
Hey, he truthed it out.
He truthed it out. Yeah, truth, tweet, but,
we got to pump his network,
We go X, Y, yeah, absolutely. I want Truth Social to do as well as possible. Okay, my leaders are, and I think we both agreed on this. I think Marco Rubio had a great week last week. Little interesting how the vice president went out to Iowa to make his first foray, and about the time all his stuff went down, Marco Rubio happens to go to the briefing room and brief the press in place of the president's press secretary and blew everybody away. What do you think about that, John?
Oh, the humor he showed. For the first time, Marco Rubio looks comfortable in his skin versus somebody wanting to get to that level. Yeah. He's there. He's comfortable with it. And, I think what a great opportunity to have Rubio and Vance leading into the next side, plus, Dukakis in the background.
Yeah, absolutely. And then my next winner is this guy, Spence Pratt, who's running for mayor of L.A. He's probably going to win because the Democrats always end up finding a way to win. But boy, his ads are fantastic. He is really tearing it up there.
Man, even so much the mayor skipping the next debate because he just handed it to her at the time. And he did it with passion. He made it personal because of his own experiences out there. I mean, it was just a tremendous debate performance. It's given me a little hope for L.A., but you and I know better.
Well, I don't know if you saw the ad. I think this is a legitimate ad that the Democrats ran to counter Spencer, what's his name? Pratt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's what they said in essence. I'm paraphrasing. They said, Spencer Pratt doesn't believe that we should have more social workers dealing with crime. He thinks we should have more police. He doesn't believe that we should be spending taxpayer dollars to pay for housing for, in essence, the undocumented. I thought, holy hell, that's like a perfect ad to defeat the mayor. It's incredible. If they actually, maybe that was a spoof, but I don't think it was. If anybody actually created that ad in her campaign, they have lost their minds.
Yeah, I saw the reporting of it, and I'll tell you, if that is true, then our country is in trouble. But hopefully,
no kidding,
hopefully the silent majority is going to step forward, as we've said before.
I guess. Speaking of silent majority, no longer silent anymore. Years ago, I was invited to a restaurant called Hal's in Atlanta. Well, you know Hal's. You've been there many a time,
I love
right?
Hal's.
Great steakhouse. To be with Nigel Farage. And I spent 3 hours there. He was an absolutely phenomenally engaging person. He'll have a couple of glasses of red wine on you, I can tell you that. But he is a fantastic leader. And boy, is he leading now, upsetting the pollsters. We'll talk about that in a minute. Farage's party, is it called Reform UK, I guess, is they won hundreds of council seats in England in the last week. And now there's talk that the current prime minister will have to step down. How do they save Labour? How do they save the Conservative Party? Both of them going down the tubes while his party is rising. He's a big winner this week, don't you think?
He is. I saw a report of thousands of seats, like 1,200 seats. And it's pretty amazing. And it gives me hope. I think the current prime minister, already recognizes he's in trouble. He's trying to reassociate with the European Union, and he's not really putting UK first. He needs to learn a little bit about putting UK first.
Well, I think they're afraid to over there. There's been such a cultural shift and make a change in the population that they're afraid to be British. And I saw that start. I went to school in England in the early 80s, mid-80s. I saw that begin to start when I was a student there. And of course, it's really accelerated over these last many, many years since I graduated. Let's see, who else do we have on here? I know. a little baseball.
Yeah.
Down here in St. Pete, the Rays are off to the greatest start they've ever had in the American League. And I think you can talk about my native hometown and where you live. How are the Rays doing?
The Braves had some injuries. They've had a few things, but they're actually having a good season. They have a great, and a great group of talented players who, believe it or I don't know if this will come across, but they associate with the community. Professional sports is so divided these days. It's really athletes, but they're really in the community. So I would love an Atlanta Tampa Bay a series, and if that's it, we're going to have a bet.
Well, what I can't figure out, Tampa has been so damn disjointed. They don't know where they're going to play. They changed ownership. The new ownership, by the way, they apparently there's a local bar that everybody goes to watch baseball, and I think it was opening day or whatever. They showed up at that bar and bought everybody in there a drink, which tells you they're different than the old owners. The Braves organization, who I know, could not be any better. I mean, what a fantastic organization that is. Probably the best in baseball. Okay, laggards. I got to say it. Inflation. The numbers came out not good, John. What do you think?
Our only hope is that the conflict in Iran resolves sooner than later. That gas prices go back down. Though somebody pointed out that the prices now are what they were during the Biden administration, but
right.
People have a short-term memory, and so we need gas to go down. We need inflation to come down, and certainly before the midterms.
Well, another thing about gas. So you hear gas is at $4.50 or whatever number they throw out. You got to remember that includes California, which is paying twice as much as anybody else because of all their idiotic regulations and requirements and this, that, and the other. But I will say as a pollster, you can't get into the midterms too deep with inflation going up and with internal strife within your own party. I'll talk about that next week when we have Robert Cahaly on. We'll talk about what's going on in the Republican Party because there is always something going on in the Republican Party. Remember, it's the party that loves to hate each other.
Well, that reminds me of another loser we were to throw out there, Matt, is John Thune. And what he's doing, the failure to get rid of the filibuster, the failure to allow recess appointments, the failure to cooperate, but stand up in front of the camera and pretending you do. Clearly a loser.
Well, here's what I don't understand. So AOC, you and I were talking about this earlier. AOC this week said, no, she isn't just about being president. She's here to transform America. And part of that transformation, and they're making it very clear now, is if the Democrats ever get control and can do this, they are going to stack the Supreme Court. And once they stack the Supreme Court, you're finished because you no longer have any possibility of having an impartial judiciary. It ends at a very partisan judiciary, and they'd like to add Puerto Rico, and they'd like to add D.C. as states, and they want to get rid of the filibuster. But yet Thune and that bunch in the Senate, oh no, we don't have enough members who are willing to go that we can't break that tradition. Can you believe it?
Well, they're walking along on tradition that the other side is just going to stomp on when they come into power. And if we don't do something to try to get some fairness and balance, you're going to have a stacked court. I mean, we're seeing that in Virginia. I think, you and I talked, that's probably another loser with
Big
what they're
loser.
trying to do.
Big loser. Well, they lost twice. So they lost with their own Supreme Court saying that the redistricting grab that they attempted was, in fact, unconstitutional. And then now they're deciding, well, we'll just change the law and say that you can't be, what'd you say the retirement age has to be if that law passes? 54?
54 is the retirement age they want to put in for the Virginia Supreme Court so they can clean out and appoint their own folks. It's crazy.
Yeah, boy, I tell you what, if 54 is retirement, you ought to be in the old folks' home. Let's see. Pollsters in the UK, boy, they blew that big time. They didn't see that coming. Maybe a harbinger of things to see. And I can tell you one thing, John. I want this to go on the record. So in 20, we all know, in 16, 20, and 24, my firm Insider Advantage, Trafalgar, Rasmussen, a few others, just got almost every state right with Trump. Where we were off was in the 22 midterms, and I will freely admit it. And you have to create a polling model. And we created a polling model expecting that a non-incumbent Donald Trump could still stir up the sort of turnout that he turned out as an incumbent president. And I can tell you now, I think he can stir up more. But every pollster I know is going to inure to the side of putting the polling, the turnout model conservatively against the Republicans and giving that turnout boost to the Democrats. Because right now, I don't see the enthusiasm on the Republican side. And I'm seeing it on the Democratic side.
Yeah, about the UK polling, as they say, or here in the South, I don't know nothing about polling, but Matt Towery does. And I would sure like to open a franchise for Insider Advantage in the UK if you and I can talk about that after the show.
Oh, yeah. Great. I mean, it's big. Hey, John, forget it. It's been a big enough pain in the ass. Just do it for the U.S. Let me run through some races real quick and just tell some folks what I think is going to happen. And with this, I am going to put my Matt Towery TV glasses on, even if we do have reflections, so I can read it very quickly. In Georgia, in the governor's race, I think you have Jackson and Jones will be in the runoff. Rick Jackson is the insurance mogul who jumped in late, been spending massive amounts of money. Jones is lieutenant governor of Georgia. I don't see anyone else jumping in there right now. I'm sure you're in Georgia, so you can tell me what you think about that one.
No, I agree. I think it's going to turn out to those. Chris Carr is not going to be able to put up, and Raffensperger is not going to be there.
Right.
Though I do think it's going to be doing. And Jackson is coming across more personable than many folks thought he would.
Right.
And I think that combined with the negatives on the other side is really going to push him up.
Yeah, I think so. I think that race is tightening, though. On the Senate side, it looks like Mike Collins, and I think Dooley, Derek Dooley, son of the late Vince Dooley, is racing up the charts, and he probably will be in that runoff. What do you think?
It's just too bad he doesn't have Larry Munson to talk about him coming up and running over the opposition like a hobnail boot,
Well, he's got his mother, who's still I've known Barbara for many, many years, and I guarantee you, he could not have a more avid supporter than his mother, and she knows a lot about politics as well. If
you know Barbara Dooley, you do what she says.
Oh, absolutely, I do what she says. I do think that that race is sort of tight, though, and there's always a possibility that Dewey may end up at third. But right now, it looks like the momentum is with him. I'm going to poll it again. I haven't polled my final poll yet. Texas. Now, this brings us back to our friend John Thune. They've been spending a fortune from the Senatorial Committee and associated PACs to try to save John Cornyn. Every poll, and now, by the way, Polymarket, the betting market, what do they call it? Crowdfunding, whatever it is, betting market in essence. Everybody says Paxton. What do you think?
I think it's going to be Paxton. I think he's got the enthusiasm. He's got the momentum behind him. And I think some of folks are worried that Cornyn's just a wolf in sheep's clothing that is saying that he's going to come in and support the agenda. But when he gets there, he's going to be the same difficult support that he's been while he's been in office.
Well, sort of like Mitch McConnell when the president came out and endorsed him. President hadn't made an endorsement in that race. I hope he doesn't. President hadn't made an endorsement in the Senate race in Georgia either. He has endorsed Jones for governor. That may prove to be very helpful in a runoff. In Georgia, about 2/3 of the vote disappears from the primary to the runoff because in the wisdom of Georgia, like always, they set the runoff in the middle of when everybody leaves for summer vacation. So only your hardcore Republicans vote in that, and that might give Burt Jones a little bit of an edge because he's been in this business on the Republican side longer. But hey, you got a lot of money with Rick Jackson, and money can do a lot of things, right?
Yeah, it does. And on the Democrat side, I think Bottoms is pretty far out there.
Yeah, I think our Insider Advantage poll had Bottoms over 50%. There's some other polls that had her in 30, 40, but with the high undecided, I just don't see any of the other candidates getting much done. For those who don't know, Lance Bottoms was the mayor of Atlanta. Not considered one of the better mayors, to be honest with you. Probably some consider, even Democrats consider the worst mayor of their lifetime. But for some reason, she has now gotten right back in, and it looks like she's going to get that Democratic nomination. And anything can happen in Georgia. I tell people at any given year, it's not a given red state under any set of circumstances. Well, John, we've had a great show today. Greg Jarrett was fantastic. hopefully have our friend Robert Cahaly on next week, and we will talk politics and polling, and we'll get into this Republican stuff going on because there's a lot under the surface taking place right now in the Republican Party. None of it do I think necessarily bodes well for doing well in the fall. Never is it a good thing to be shooting your own party, each other in the foot right before the midterms, right?
Always difficult. And you would hope, as Rodney King says, can't we all just get along?
Can't we all just get no? I've been doing the Republican Party for too long. They won't take getting along, even if everything is peaceful. Okay, John Hall, enjoyed it. I'm Matt Towery for the Leaderboard. Join us next week, and please have a great week. We'll see you soon.